So we are recording this meeting and can share it with students who are unable to attend today or who want to refer back to some of the information that we talked about. We're going to use the next hour to talk about fall semester for international students and what it means for your academic plans. We were planning to hold this webinar once the fall information was released by the government, so we could give you the full details. And that information, I think most of you know, was preliminarily released on Monday and presented a number of challenges that we have been working behind the scenes to better understand and to figure out if these plans go through, what it will actually mean for international students on F1 visas. So that's what we're going to spend the next hour talking about. If you could just make sure that your mic is muted, or if you're from a phone, make sure your phone is muted. That would be really helpful. We do have information in this presentation that's geared for both current students, new students, and also students who will graduate in fall semester. So I think there'll be something for everybody. We have staff here who've joined the meeting from our Education Abroad office, our staff from ISSS, staff from the Dean of Students office and from the graduate school that will be on hand to answer any questions that maybe come up in those areas. I put out a call for questions prior to this meeting and I received hundreds and hundreds of questions. And so we're not going to be able to answer all of those today, but we're going to try to answer the main questions that that came up frequently and I think are really important for you to consider in your planning. Let's see, there is a message function to the meeting. So if you do have questions, feel free to enter those into the chat box. But I would say that if it's something that we're going to cover in the presentation anyway, your question may not be answered right away. And we are covering a lot of information, so I hope we'll have time for questions at the end. But if not, we'll try to get to those questions that you entered in the chat box individually. And so we're going to cover a lot of technical information in this presentation. And before we jump in and get started, I wanted to ask our Associate Vice President of Global Affairs, Yuhong Rong, to say a few words.
Good morning, everyone. And I know you all have a lot of questions about what this rule can affect you. But I am here, I want to express it to you on behalf of President Katsouleas, Provost Leju, and the university to let you know, to echo Provost Leju's message the other day. This rule, from our point of view, is not only a challenge for international students, but in general is a challenge for the value of American higher education. And I want to let you know, share with you, as a former international student, that I benefited from the generosity of American people and American higher education. And over the years, I have become an American citizen and a contributing one, I hope. And there are many UConn faculty and students who are like me, who are not born here, who have eventually come through our education, and we have becoming a very critical contributing workforce for the American ingenuity. And this is what America is made for. And we, as the University of Connecticut, will not accept any of those challenges that's going to affect the life of our students, affect the central mission of the university, and affect how American higher education and how it plays a role in the world of innovation, research, and learning. So we will do everything we can to protect our students and to protect our great institution. On that front, of course, Ray and her staff as the university advising staff, faculty will do all the things technically possible to protect you. At the same time, I also want to let you know the university has reached out to our congressional delegation and asked them to seek assistance from their colleagues on Capitol Hill. And also, in addition, that we have been working with the state of Connecticut Attorney General William Tong and his staff. And as you have read yesterday on Hartford Current, Attorney General Tong mentioned that the state of Connecticut intend to sue the Trump administration over this. So in the last 2 days, Ray and I and many others on campus have been working with our Consul General's office to work with the Attorney General's office. We are exploring, investigating, and preparing for this lawsuit that may come up. And we are currently working on it. And once we have any updates, we will let you know on that front as well. As you know, Harvard and MIT have already done so. And I want to let you know we're not just sitting and waiting for the result of that lawsuit. And we are working with our Attorney General on the Connecticut one as well. So on that note, I know time is precious. You want to know what this means to you, staff, and all our other advising staff, faculty for answers to your questions. But before I leave, is there any questions for me? If not, Ray, it's all yours.
Super, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and reshare then my other screen. All right, so everyone can see the presentation, I hope. Yes. So what we're going to do is talk about a little bit of background information related to the rule, and also about F1 visa basics, because there's a lot of concepts related to your F1 visa that you need to understand the differences between those concepts to understand some of the details of the rule and its potential impact on your visa status. Then we're going to talk about the proposed rule in itself, the details, and how UConn interprets the rule. And then we're going to cover a number of the student questions that you've submitted in advance. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is basically what's a SEVIS record. We talk about SEVIS all the time, and the SEVIS record is very important for all international students here to understand really what it means. And so SEVIS is a database that is owned by the government. It's the Student and Exchange Visitor Information System. And each of you on an F1 visa has an individual record in this database. And there are certain staff at the university who are designated users and can access your SEVIS record. And we're responsible for submitting information about you and your program of study to the government through your SEVIS record. This is how we also issue your I-20 form. It's based on the data that we input into your SEVIS record. So your information record has, it's got information about your program of study, how you're paying for your studies, your basic biographical information, how long you'll be studying in the United States. And we're required to maintain the SEVIS record for you as a condition for being able to issue an I-20 and sponsor an F1 student visa on your behalf. So a lot of what we're going to talk about in the next hour is about your SEVIS status. So every SEVIS record has an assigned status to it, and your SEVIS status is really supposed to align with sort of your visa status, the state of your F1 visa at any given point during your academic program. So your SEVIS status will be initial if you're a new student and you have not yet reported to the school. Your SEVIS status is active or should be active while you're a current student and while you're meeting all of the requirements for the F1 student visa. Your SEVIS record will be terminated status if you're no longer meeting all of your F1 visa requirements. And this can be simply because you're taking a break from your studies or you're discontinuing your program. Or it can be for a violation where maybe you had not followed one of the F1 visa rules. And then finally, once you're done with your program and you've left the country, or maybe you've stayed in the United States, but you've changed to a different visa status, your SEVIS status becomes completed. So the SEVIS status is connected to your Form I-20 in that we issue your I-20 from your SEVIS record. And that in order for your Form I-20 to be valid, your SEVIS status has to be active. Right. So, so if your SEVIS status is no longer active, either because it's terminated or it's completed, you have to get a new I-20 that matches your new SEVIS record, and it will have a new SEVIS ID number. And so one thing that's really important is that your SEVIS status and your academic status are different, but they are related. A lot of students had concerns when this rule came out that that if your SEVIS status is no longer active, that you cannot be an academic student at the university, especially in cases where maybe students are going to study in their home country. They think if we can't have the active SEVIS record, that maybe I can't be an active student at the university anymore. But that's not the case. Your academic status is your enrollment as a student at UConn. And so if you're in the United States studying, you really need to have both an active SEVIS status and an active academic status. But if you're outside the United States, it can be that your SEVIS status is not active, but you're still an active enrolled student, and that's okay. So under normal circumstances, pre-COVID-19, the F1 visa regulations require you to enroll on a full-time basis and complete your academic program by the end date listed on your I-20. And in normal cases, the F1 visa regulations do not allow international students to enroll in fully online programs. From the government's point of view, if your program is fully online, you don't have a need to be in the United States to complete that program, so it's not an eligible basis for an F1 visa. And during normal times, only one course, up to 3 credits, are allowed to be taken by a student in the United States. That counts towards meeting your full-time course load. So for an undergraduate student, if you are taking 12 credits as full-time, at least 9 of those credits have to be in person. You can only have the 3 credits online. So that's pre-COVID-19 during normal times. And then the last rule during normal times is that if a student is in their final semester and needs only 1 course left to graduate, it cannot be an online course. So typically during normal times when that happens, if a student might finish their program from outside the United States. Now, during spring 2020 semester, the government temporarily changed their rules in response to the massive changes in higher education due to the pandemic. There were so many schools changing their mode of instruction that they had to act very quickly to make certain exceptions so that students, so that their legal status would not be in jeopardy if they stayed in the United States while enrolled online, because so many schools moved to online study. So during spring 2020, and this was also extended through summer, students could study online and remain in the United States on the student visa if studying on a full-time basis. Or students also had the option to return home and keep an active SEVIS record as long as you were studying on a full-time basis. So keeping your CVIS record active while you're overseas makes it easier to come back to the United States because you don't have to get a new I-20 to start your F1 visa program all over again. Now, on July 6th, there was a broadcast memo that was issued to schools, and we had been waiting for an update on information for fall semester. But the information that was published in this broadcast memo was not what we were expecting to hear, because the emergency circumstances here still have not gotten better. Universities are still operating under different modes of instruction, so we were not expecting to see this further restriction on international students. So this was announced on Monday. We need to be clear that this applies only to F1 students. We don't have guidelines yet for J1 students. And then the next day on July 7th, the government released a further FAQ to begin to explain some of the nuances of this rule. In the rule, schools were classified as meeting one of 3 different options for study. And they set out different rules for each. So schools could either be fully online, fully in person, or a hybrid mix of online and in person. And so UConn's offering courses in both an online and in person basis. So we meet that hybrid category. So there's been some fast development since July 6th. So on Wednesday, Harvard and MIT sued the federal government over this rule, and I think that was widely reported in the news, so you may be aware of that. And then just yesterday, there was a hearing, and the federal judge in that hearing said that they would like to decide by July 15th if students can be denied entry to the US for attending school online. So it's specifically related to the Harvard and MIT students that were referenced in the lawsuit. And they referenced July 15th because this is the first deadline that schools who are operating completely online have to report their operations to the government. And so this sets up a very sort of fast-moving timeline. And I think the goal of this lawsuit is to either get the government to kind of step back on some of their requirements and to relax some of these rules, or to potentially put a temporary stop to these rules coming into effect. The case is going to be back in court this morning. And so things are very fast moving. The information that we present to you today may not really be accurate in several weeks. And so we need to be mindful of that. We also want to say that, you know, the broadcast memo that came out was really just, it was an announcement of what they plan to do. But the rule that they plan to put in place has not actually been put into place yet. So a lot of what we're talking about is sort of for preliminary planning purposes, but we don't know if it will actually be a requirement. So the rules that the memo established for hybrid schools is that students can take more than one online course, more than the one online course normally allowed under visa regulations. They did not define how many. If a student's entire course load is online, it cannot be done in the US. So even if the school is operating on a hybrid basis, if that particular student enrolls fully online, that student cannot stay in the US. If a student's or if a school's mode or a student's mode of instruction changes mid-semester to entirely online, the students must depart the US or could potentially be in violation of their status. And the memo said that a student who chooses to take their courses entirely online from outside the United States, so if they go to their home country and study completely online, the first memo said that those students would not be able to keep their CVIS records active. However, the FAQ that was published just the day after indicated that students who study online in their home countries can keep an active CVIS record as long as they're enrolled in the full-time online coursework. So we're already seeing some contradictions there that are set up. So, you know, right now we're hopeful that the FAQ will be, you know, what they decide to go with. You know, we'll be able to keep the CVIS records active, but we're really going to await a final rule to be published to confirm whether we can keep your CVIS records active if you're studying online from your home country. And then I do want to point out, in case you are a UCALE student or a student who's studying ESL, that ESL programs do not qualify for a hybrid exception. And so if you're going to be in the United States taking UCALE, your classes must be fully in person. And it's my understanding that they are planning to offer the courses here fully in person, so you can meet that requirement. See. I'm sorry, now my presentation is stopped. Okay, good. So there are also some rules in the memo that apply to all schools. The first is that we're required to report our university operational plan by August 1st. August 1st was the date given to hybrid schools, and we've been, reporting our operational plans since March as required. And then the second big thing that really impacts students is that we must reissue the Form I-20s of all students who will study in the United States by August 4th. And then on that new I-20 form, we have to add remarks about your mode of course instruction in the fall. For students who will enroll from outside the United States, it's not clear yet whether we are required to issue a new I-20 form for you. So it may be that you get a new I-20 in those cases, but we're not 100% sure yet, so we will let you know. In order to get your updated I-20, if you are a student who's going to be in the United States for fall or hoping to try to arrive in the United States for fall, it's really important that you follow these steps as soon as possible. So even though we don't know if the rule will be actually implemented yet, because of this tight deadline to issue all of these updated I-20s, we are already starting to do this process in case the rule becomes finalized. So to get your updated I-20, you have to submit a form to our office. And these forms can be found on our homepage. If you go to isss.uconn.edu, there's a big red button at the top that says Fall 2020 Resources. And if you click on that button, it will bring you to a page that lists these forms. If you're a current F1 student, you have to submit the Fall 2020 check-in form. If you're a new student who will try to arrive for fall, you also need to submit this Fall 2020 check-in form. And I know it says all active students, but we decided to open this form up to new students who will plan to arrive as well. New students who do not plan to arrive for fall for a variety of reasons need to instead complete the SEVIS Defer form. And this is also located on our same Fall 2020 resources page, and we've sent out messages. So once you have, if you have made the decision that you will start your program in the United States at a later date, either because you want to defer your admission, or maybe you are enrolling in a UConn partner institution, or maybe you're taking all your classes online from home, if you're not going to actually arrive for fall, you need to request the updated I-20 using this last form. Let's see. Okay, so for the students who will be studying in the United States, your I-20 needs to have comments on it that reads, the school is not operating entirely online, and that you're not taking an entirely online course load, and that to the best of our knowledge, you're taking the minimum number of online classes required to make normal progress in your degree program. This is the standard language that the government has asked us to put on your I-20 form. Your I-20 form will be electronically signed and uploaded to the ISSS portal, and you will receive an email when it's ready for you. And then you're going to have to download the I-20, print, and sign it. And so our target deadline to get these done is by August 4th. However, if you are outside the United States and you're planning to come for fall, either as a returning student or as a new student, you will need this updated I-20 when you go to your visa appointment and when you enter the United States. And we've already heard of students who have been asked for this updated I-20 when they travel or when they go to their visa appointment. The current students who are outside the United States and they're going to do home country study abroad or online courses, like I said, you might also receive an updated I-20. with travel signature, but these are going to be lower priority than the ones for students who are in the United States or planning to arrive in the United States. So how does UConn interpret the rule? And just to, right now, the memo was very vague. So that gives us more liberty to interpret the rules according to our institution and the classes that we offer. And this might change if the government offers more specific information related to the rule. So if you're going to study in the United States for fall, you need to have at least one course that's listed in PeopleSoft as either in-person, hybrid blended, or split. And like I said, the memo did not define the minimum or maximum credits required for each type of course, only that students should take the minimum online courses that are needed to make normal degree progress. And so because so many of the UConn courses are being taught online or through distance learning, it is very possible that you may only have one in-person course meeting the criteria. And according to our interpretation, that's enough. And of course, if the government gives more specific guidelines, we will tell students. So the registrar has confirmed that you can filter out the course searches by instruction mode. So you could go in and look for courses that are offered as either distance learning if you're going to be outside the country, or through in-person or hybrid if you're going to be here. And then when you click on the course details, this is where you'll be able to see how the course will be taught. If you look at kind of the first snapshot of courses, you won't be able to see this information. You have to click on the actual course to be able to see how the course is classified. So current students who are outside the United States and either can't get back for fall semester or feel more comfortable staying in their home countries can take all of your courses online. And the courses marked as WW or online are the ones that are taught asynchronously. Asynchronously means that you can access those courses at any time. And so those might be the ones that are most user-friendly if you're in a time zone on the other side of the world where you may need to be logging on at, in the middle of the night. Those ones are, those courses are going to be, those most friendly courses for you are the ones that are marked as WW because you can access them at any time. There are also courses that are marked DL for distance learning, and I believe that those courses will need to require some real-time participation. So your SEVIS record, as long as the updated guidelines apply, we plan to keep your SEVIS record active as long as you are a full-time student. Wei-Ting, can you mute your mic? Sorry. So as long as you're either full-time or you're a part-time student who's approved for a reduced course load, we do plan to keep your SEVIS record active during this time. And to return to the United States, you'll just need to have your unexpired F1 visa and a travel signature on your I-20 that's less than 12 months old. And of course, if you're in a country that currently is subject to entry restrictions, those restrictions must be lifted in order to return. We're not positive yet whether we will be issuing you a new I-20 form if you are online taking classes in your home country. Students who will study abroad in their home country, we will keep your SEVIS record active during that time, and you will receive an updated I-20 form at some point in fall with remarks about your study abroad. And this will be electronically issued, and it will have a travel signature for your return. So for new students, the same rule applies. If you plan to arrive for fall 2020, you're going to need at least one course that's classified as in-person, hybrid blended, or split. And if you cannot get a course that's offered through this mode, you can delay your arrival to spring 2021 and begin your program online from home, or you can request to defer your admission to a later term. And for some undergraduate students who are located in China, they have the opportunity to enroll in a partner institution there. Same The same rules apply for students who are transferring into UConn to start a new program this fall, or students who just finished a program at UConn in the spring and will start another UConn program in the fall. So when you go to your visa appointment, if you're currently outside the United States, you need to have that new I-20 issued with the comments about your in-person study. Or if you're a student who's going to delay your arrival until spring or a later term, you need to bring your updated I-20 with the new program start date. And so remember, we'll reissue these I-20s for you electronically, but first you need to tell us what your plans are for fall by filling out those forms. We had a lot of questions from students who will graduate in fall 2020. So if you'll spend your final semester outside the US, you can remain an active UConn student and graduate as long as you're able to get those courses needed to meet your degree requirements. This doesn't cancel your student status in any way. And at this time, we're planning to keep your SEVIS record active if you will finish your degree outside the United States, even if it's in your final semester. But this is with a few conditions. You will not be able to enter the United States during fall with your I-20 if you're only taking online courses and these rules are implemented. And you cannot use that I-20 to return to the United States after you finished your program. And probably in your case, post-completion OPT will not be an option if you finish your degree outside the United States. But by keeping your SEVIS record active, you might have the possibility to extend your I-20 if you don't finish as planned, or you might have the opportunity to transfer your SEVIS record to a new school if you will study at another school in the US after finishing your UConn program. When do the new guidelines take effect if finalized? So the terms of the memo will become effective as of the start date of our fall term, if they are indeed finalized, which is August 31st. Until then, the spring and summer guidelines that were released are the ones that are effective for us. Okay, so now we're going to get into the student questions that you submitted and spend the rest of the time talking about some more specific examples. This was probably the most common question that we received. I'm a graduate student and I'm enrolled in only research credits. Is this okay to stay in the United States? And so luckily the graduate research credits are classified as in-person and they meet our current interpretation of the memo. And really the same rules apply to any courses that are not necessarily classroom-based, but as long as they're listed as in-person as the mode of instruction, we would consider you to be maintaining your status. However, we do advise that students who are enrolled in non-classroom based courses should still live within commutable distance to campus, unless you need to be at a different location for educational purposes. For example, if your field research is location specific, that might be a reason to justify being somewhere else. Or if you're doing an internship for credit and that internship is located somewhere else, that might be a justifiable academic reason. But otherwise, you know, if you're doing your research credits and for personal preferences, you want to live in California, that might be a red flag with the government because they could say, well, you're really not participating in person. And we do remind you that you have to report changes in your residential address to ISSS within 10 days, and we have to update these addresses in your SEVIS record. So it is something that the government could be looking at. Can CPT be the basis for studying in the United States? So CPT stands for Curricular Practical Training, and what it is, it's an authorization for F1 students to participate in internships required for your course, for your the course that you're enrolled in or for your degree program. It's also given for clinical and other practice-based learning that's part of your program. So if that CPT is based on a course that you registered for and that course is listed as in person, then this should be okay. But if it's not based on a credit, bearing course, then CPT in itself may not be considered sufficient to remain in the United States. So for an example, some programs have like an internship milestone that has no credit that's tied to it. And so that in itself would probably not be enough to remain in the United States. That's what our government contact has told us, because you could theoretically be doing that somewhere else, like in your home country. And we would worry that you don't have the documentation to prove that this is an in-person activity. You don't have that course registration to document that. We would advise the same for other non-credit bearing academic activities like teaching or GA research. So you might have a graduate assistantship where you're needed in the lab here, but if your other courses are entirely online, that probably wouldn't be enough to meet the criteria. So the university plans to move all courses online after Thanksgiving. How will this impact students? This was another question that we received, and it's one that I have a lot of questions about myself. And really, this is still being determined. So we really need to have further government guidance on this particular model, and we need to have time to explore different options to accommodate students. One thing is that, you know, there are so many schools in the United States that have decided to adopt this same plan. And so I think it's something that will need to be addressed by the government. And where this situation is still not finalized and everything is moving so quickly, I'm not, I don't want students to panic about this particular issue yet. So I do not want to travel home during fall semester. What steps do I need to take in terms of choosing courses? So we would advise you in this case to talk to your academic advisor or your academic program staff. I can say that the university is very aware of this matter. Everyone's talking about it and they're looking for ways to help students. We've had programs reach out to us asking about, how many students might be impacted, what they can do to help make sure that their students get a course. I do want to remind current students that enrollment will not reopen until July 27th, but you can view course modality and discuss plans with your academic advisor or program staff to plan for future registration changes, although there still could be some fluctuation with courses in the meantime. But I do want students to know that the university is aware of these challenges and they're looking at ways to make sure students can meet the requirements. So my visa will soon expire. Do I need to depart the United States to renew it? I think there's a lot of anxiety for students if they see that their visa stamp will expire, especially in this time of sort of heightened political tension and restrictions around immigration. But we do want to remind students that the visa stamp in your passport is only for traveling into the United States. And in terms of maintaining your legal status when you're here, that's based on having an active CVIS record and a Form I-20 that is still valid. So you have not gone past your program end date yet, and you're following all the visa rules. So if your visa is going to expire, that does not mean that you have to leave the country now. Next time you travel home, you can renew your visa. Will the same restrictions be in place for spring 2021? So this is a great question, and we really don't know yet how the university will operate for spring 2021 or which student visa rules will be in effect for spring 2021. What I can say, though, is that when the university returns to normal operations, we expect that the visa rules will also go back to the standard rules, which do not allow for the remote learning in the US. How can students from entry restricted countries arrive for fall? So this is a significant challenge that we don't really have a lot of foresight to say when these entry restrictions will be lifted. And we do have, significant number of students, either new or current, who are currently located in the countries that are subject to entry restrictions. I do want to remind students that entry restrictions are not based on your nationality. It's really based on physical location and where you were located in the 14 days prior to arrival in the United States. So you have to be careful if you're going to be transiting through a restricted country that may be problematic. I do think that because there's so little that we know about the entry restrictions, it is important that if you're located in one of these countries, that you consider whether distance learning from your home country is an option for you. So a question came up from a student doing thesis pending OPT. Am I required to have at least one in-person course to maintain my status? So thesis pending OPT is a type of work permit that is given to students who are in the final stages of their graduate degree. So if you are doing your thesis pending OPT as post-completion OPT and finishing up your degree on the side, then your F1 visa status is based on your participation in OPT employment, and it's not based on your course enrollment. So no, in this case, you don't have to worry about having an in-person course as long as you're actively employed through your OPT and maintaining your status that way. But just as a reminder, if you are on post-completion OPT with thesis pending, you still have to maintain an active academic status to be able to continue in your program. Can I repeat a course that I've already passed that is being offered in person? So, can repeating a course be an easier way to meet the in-person requirement? And so we would say that this is probably not considered appropriate for your F1 visa. So you should be looking at taking a new class that will, be part of your degree program. Let's see. So students asked, what is the university doing to help international students through this crisis? So I cited the provost message here, but I think Yuhang really touched upon this greatly with his words in the beginning. I have only one course left to graduate, and it is an online course. What are my options? So this is a trickier situation. If the rule ends up being implemented, this could be a problematic situation. If you need fewer credits to graduate than a full-time course load, you do have to apply for a reduced course load by August 31st. The application form for that is on our website, and this is for any student who's in their final semester and doesn't need the full course load to graduate. You can get permission to be part-time. However, at least one of the courses you take needs to be an in-person, hybrid, blended, or split course if you will remain in the United States. If you will take only one course and it's an online course, then you would need to take that outside of the US. Student asks, I have a medical condition and I'm concerned about exposure to COVID-19 through taking the in-person coursework. What can I do? So I think in this situation, the best approach would be to apply for a medical reduced course load through our office. We have the application form for this on our website, and we would ask you to apply before August 31st again. As part of this application, however, you need to provide medical documentation that's been signed either by an MD, a DO, or a licensed clinical psychologist. And so I would say reach out to your ISSS advisor if you have more questions about this. Will my visa be affected if I take all my courses online outside my country? So as long as you're studying on a full-time basis, we hope to be able to keep your SEVIS record active. And this would mean there's really no negative impact on your SEVIS status by taking those classes outside the United States. If you decide to study only on a part-time basis, and it's not based on an approved reduced course load, but really just because you prefer to study part-time, then what we would do is terminate your SEVIS status, and you would need to get a new I-20 form from our office with new program dates in order to return. And as long as your F1 visa is unexpired, you should be able to use that same visa to return. Your visa doesn't get canceled just because you're studying outside the United States. However, once you come back on that I-20, you have to study for 2 semesters before you will be able to do CPT or OPT as an F1 student. Can I take a gap year or a gap semester? And what do I do to take a temporary leave from my program? This could be a good option for some, but from a visa point of view, if you decide to do this, your SEVIS status will be terminated and you'll need to get the new I-20 form to come back. And Megan Petza, are you on here to talk about the process for graduate students?
Yes, I can talk about that. Hi, Ray. So for graduate students, the first step is to fill out a voluntary separation notification request. That's a multi-step process that's available on the grad school's website. The first step, you kind of provide some information about your plans and if you're going to be canceling or withdrawing, we kind of figure out that at that point. And then the form is sent back to you to make a decision on whether or not you definitely want to move forward with separating from the university. So when you're filling it out, just keep in mind there are 2 steps that need to be done. So you'll have to make 2 decisions within there. And an academic leave of absence, it's a separation from the university. So as Ray said, your SEVIS status will be terminated. You won't be an active student, which means you won't have access to certain university resources, like the library or UConn email. So those are things that you want to just keep in mind because it's supposed to represent a time of no academic progress. So it doesn't count towards your time to degree deadline, which is great. It stops the clock on that. However, you can't complete any milestones toward your degree. So if you're on academic leave, you can't be doing your general exam, you can't do your dissertation proposal because we're not able to post that milestone because you are considered separated from the university at that point. But for graduate students, part of the VSN process is requiring major advisor and department head approval of your leave of absence. And what that provides is a kind of a guarantee that at the end of your approved leave of absence, you're able to return to graduate study. So you don't need to submit a readmission form the way it works for undergrads. You would just request reinstatement and you're guaranteed the ability to come back without needing additional advisor approval. And just another thing to keep in mind is students cannot be employed as a graduate assistant while on academic leave, again, because you're not an active student. But if anyone has questions about their specific situation or what they're interested in doing for fall and if leave of absence is right for them, please feel free to reach out to me directly. Again, my name is Megan Petza. I'm at the graduate school and I can also be reached at gradseparation, all one word, at uconn.edu.
Thanks, Megan. And do we have Kim or Stephanie on to talk about the process for undergraduate students?
Yeah.
We're both here.
Yeah. You get us both.
Go ahead, Kim.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Ray. Thanks, Steph. So for any undergraduate student, anyone looking to take a gap year is we just want to make sure it's clear that they're canceling their enrollment at the university. And so just like for the graduate still, you cannot stay enrolled at UConn if you're not registered for any classes. And so students who are looking to cancel the fall 2020 semester, they can do that online. If you go to dos.uconn.edu, you can absolutely go to leaving the university and you would apply for a cancellation. As you can see right on Ray's screen, you have until August 30th. So there is still time to go ahead and kind of weigh the pros and cons of what you may do for the fall 2020 semester. If you decide to leave and you want your cancellation to be a leave of absence, you can request that on the cancellation form. The benefit of taking a leave of absence is the university can hold your catalog year for up to 3 semesters. And so as long as you're a student in good academic standing, we're going to quantify that as having a GPA of at least a 2.0. You're coming back within 3 semesters, you can go ahead and take advantage of that leave of absence. So the leave of absence truly secures that the program and the requirements for graduation remain the same. So for whatever reason during those 3 semesters, any changes are made to your program, they will not apply to you if you apply for a leave of absence. Now, when a student separates from the university via a cancellation or a leave of absence, they do need to reapply. And so we have 2 deadlines for readmission. And so if you're looking to come back for a fall semester, that deadline is always going to be July 1. If you're looking to come back for a spring semester, that deadline is always going to be December 1st. Again, the readmission application form can be found online, dos.uconn.edu. And if you have any questions whatsoever about your specific circumstance, or you want to go into more detail, please feel free to email the Dean of Students Office general email box. We have many folks checking that on a very regular basis. And if you'd like to speak to an assistant dean, all assistant deans, you can make an appointment via Nexus. So all of our available time slots you can find right on Nexus.
Awesome. Kim, can you clarify, can the student take a leave of absence for just 1 semester, or does it have to be for a full year? And are there rules on when they can return?
Yep, no, if a student cancels on or before August 30th, yes, they can come back for the spring semester. So if a student makes a decision today or up until August 30th that they're going to cancel their registration for fall 2020, they can still reapply for spring 2021. And so you don't have to wait until, so if you're not going to be here for fall 2020, but you want to be here for spring 2021, you don't have to wait to December 1st to go ahead and submit your application. You can submit it at any time. So it's on or before December 1st. So it is possible that a student could make the decision before August 30th that they're not going to be here for fall. And then on September 1st, they reapply to the university, right? That's for spring 2020. Absolutely. I do want to share that the typical turnaround time for a readmission notification about whether or not a student has been accepted back to their degree program is about 4 to 6 weeks. And so the closer you wait until that December 1st deadline, it might take a little bit longer period of time, right? The volume that will come in will be a little bit greater. So there's nothing holding a student back doing it earlier, Ray.
Perfect. Thank you.
For sure.
So moving on, we have just a few minutes left. So what is the deadline to leave the US if we will study fully online? So this was not specifically talked about in the memo, but if this memo ends up being finalized, the way that we've interpreted this is that students should have until September 14th to adjust your course schedule. That's the add drop deadline. So we would give you up until that date to notify us of your plans to take online classes and to depart the United States by that day. And you also have a 15-day grace period to depart the United States after this day. So really that would put the maximum departure time as the 29th, or the departure date as the 29th, but you have to notify ISSS of your plans to depart by the 14th. And so if there is guidance released that provides different information about these timelines, then we will let you know. This could be subject to change, but this is how we have initially determined to interpret this. So what if all my courses are online, but I will not be able to leave due to travel restrictions? So we know right now that there are a lot of difficulties with travel worldwide. A lot of flights aren't operating. Certain flights can go to certain countries, but not other countries. International travel is really impossible at the moment. And so if you are in a situation where you can only take online courses, but you can't depart the US, what we would probably try to do is help you identify alternate visa options to be able to stay in the United States without falling out of status. But this could require you to take a temporary break from your courses because not all visa statuses allow for you to study. So, we would really work with students individually in this situation to figure out the best possible option. If I study from my home country, will this count toward my 1 academic year of eligibility for OPT or CPT? So for new incoming students who are thinking to maybe start their programs online or through study abroad from their home countries, We don't know what the answer for this will be yet. So, students must have studied on a full-time basis for at least 2 full semesters before being eligible for OPT or CPT, or for 1 academic year. And so we don't know yet if the government will allow a semester spent outside the United States to count towards meeting this academic year rule for new students. But for active students who we're maintaining an active SEVIS record for you while you're studying outside the United States, this should count towards meeting your academic year requirement, as long as you are enrolled full-time and we keep your SEVIS status active. However, like I said before, if you are outside the United States and it's your final semester, it probably won't be possible to apply for OPT, because you have to be physically in the United States to do that. And you're not able to use your I-20 to come back to the United States if you're taking only online courses or distance learning courses. Let's see. So I left in spring semester when the outbreak started. When I return, I will have been outside the United States for more than 5 months. Will this affect my visa? So the government previously confirmed in spring that students may return to the United States after a temporary absence of more than 5 months with the same SEVIS record, as long as you maintained your active full-time enrollment and you kept your SEVIS status active during that time. So a lot of students have been asking about this 5-month rule, and the messaging we've heard until now is that the 5-month rule really doesn't apply in these circumstances, as long as you kept studying on a full-time basis and we've kept your SEVIS status active. And we will continue to follow these guidelines unless we are told otherwise. So just, I want to summarize some of the key points that we really need to get I-20s out to students who will study in the United States in the fall. We may be mandated to do this by August 4th, but really for those who are traveling to the United States, you're going to potentially need it for your travel. So who's going to need a new I-20? All new and current students who will study in the United States. All current students who will do home country study abroad at a UConn partner institution will get an updated I-20 as well, and we'll send this to you probably later in the summer or in the fall. And all new students who will arrive to UConn in a later term, either because you deferred your admission, you will study in a UConn first year program in China, which is an option for some undergraduate students who are located in China, or because you will study online in fall 2020. So for any student who won't be able to physically report to campus, in fall you need to get an updated I-20 with new program dates. All right, so that's the third category. And like we said, current students who are studying online from their home country, we may or may not be issuing a new I-20 for you, but we will make sure that you have an I-20 that has a travel signature for your return. This is just going to be lower priority because you won't be returning until after fall semester is over. So some things that we want you to remember: beware of scams. We know that international students in the past have really been targeted by scanners because you're in a vulnerable situation where you may not know what rules apply. And so, with all of these new immigration rules, we think that there could be a lot of vulnerability for scammers to target students who think they may be impacted by the rules. So we want to remind students, if someone calls you claiming to be police or immigration or some other government agency, if they're using threatening language, if they're asking you for money, this is the scam and you need to hang up on them and report it to our office. And then we'll provide you with further guidelines of who you can report the issue to. But this is really common, and we're sorry that this happens. UConn Shaw Mental Health Services is here, and they have reached out to our office to let students know that they're here to support you. We know that all of these immigration changes and everything happening in the world and in the country is really stressful, and they are offering telehealth services, and we encourage you to reach out, even just to chat through this difficult time. Our ISSS advisors are available for video appointments, and so those are scheduled through Nexus, or you can go to our website, to our staff listing, and schedule your appointment directly through there. And just remember that things are moving very quickly right now. What we presented today may be very different even this afternoon. So please keep checking your emails from our office, and just know that there may be changes. And then finally, we just want you to know that you are supported and you are so welcome here at UConn, in Connecticut, and in the United States. And I know that the path to get here for fall may be very difficult with the pandemic and with the current travel restrictions, but we will do our best to try and get you here, if not for fall, then soon after. I think we are at time, so we're not going to be able to take and address questions, but I think our staff have been answering your questions through the chat box this whole time. So I hope that you got the answers you were looking for. If not, please feel free to send an email to international@uconn.edu, and we'll do our best to get back to you or to find someone who can answer your question. Thank you all, and I hope you have a good weekend.